Use the Row widget to display multiple widgets horizontally on the x-axis. Use the Column widget to display multiple widgets vertically on the y-axis. And use the Stack widget to display multiple widgets on top of each other on the z-axis. In this video, we will create 3 simple designs with the Row widget, and we will also look in detail at how all the properties of the Row widget work. If you're new here, subscribe to my channel and make sure to watch this video till the end. Let's get started by creating a Row widget. Therefore, you go to your build method and then you create within the children property all the widgets which you want to display horizontally next to each other. This Row widget has then a lot of different properties at which we want to look at right now. So in our case, we have here 3 widgets next to each other every time the Flutter logo. And now we can change here the main axis size, the main axis alignment and cross axis alignment to display our widgets differently within the Row widget. Let's get started with the main axis size, and this one you can set to max. And then the Row widget will stretch to the maximum size horizontally and will try to get here all the space it can get. On the other hand, if you set main axis size min, then all widgets will shrink to the smallest possible size. Next, we want to look at the main axis alignment, and this property is only working if you set the main axis size to max. And the main axis alignment can be set to start, end or center, and then all of your widgets will be set to this position. Next, you also can set space between, and then the space will be equally distributed between all of your children. You also can set it to space around, and then the free space will be distributed between the children, and also half of that space which we have here between the children is also going to the end behind all of our children and also to the start before all of our children. And lastly, you have space evenly, and with this, the free space is distributed between all of our children, and also the same space which we have between our children is then also going after all of our children here at the end, and also before all of our children at the beginning. You also have the cross-axis alignment, and by default it is set to start, and you can also set it here to end or center, and then the widgets will be aligned here vertically to the center or to the end. And lastly, you can set it to stretch, and then all the widgets will stretch vertically and try to get here the maximum space vertically. Let's get started with our first practical example, and we want to create here this design, and here we want to create these icons at the top which you see here, and like you can see, all of them are here aligned horizontally, and therefore we can use here a row to display multiple widgets horizontally. Therefore, we go to our build method, and here inside we want to create a new method build icons, and inside of this method we want to create then our Row widget. And now we want to create here 4 different icons next to each other, and therefore we go to the children property, and here inside we create then our first icon, which is here this cake. Then we create another icon, which is here this drink, and I also create here 2 other icons. And with this, we display here all of these 4 icons next to each other. Furthermore, we also want to stretch all of our icons here to the whole width. And therefore, you have here within your row this property main axis alignment, and we set it here to main axis alignment space between. And with this, the Row widget will expand to the whole width it can get, and the free space will be equally distributed between all of our children. So in our case, between all of our icons. And if you would remove here 1 widget from your list, then it is only divided here between 3 of your widgets. And this behavior we saw already in our walkthrough. So here we have the main axis alignment, and we have it, for example, here at center. And if we switch here to space between, then the space is equally distributed between all of our children. And this is exactly what we are right now here using, space between. In our layout example, you see that we have around our icon also the circle, and this is also what we can create easily. Therefore, we wrap here around each of these icons a build box and put here then as a child property our icon inside. After you have wrapped all of your icons inside of this build box, we want to create a new method, and here inside we want to get then the child, which is our icon. Therefore, you add here this property. And now we can simply display our child, and therefore I wrap here a container around and put our child inside. And now we can decorate here our icon, which is our child, and we simply want to give it some decoration, our container, and we set here the color to red. And with this we have for all of our icons a red background color. Furthermore, you also can set here some padding so that we have some space around our icon, and now we have here 8 pixels space around our icon. And lastly, we want to make our box here rounded, and therefore you also can go to your box decoration, and here you have a property shape where you can set then the shape to circle, and this will make our box here rounded. Next, we want to create our second design, and this is then here this burger, and we want to display here 2 burgers next to each other. And if you have seen the last video, there we have already created here one of these widgets so that we display here 1 burger, and now we simply want to display here 2 burgers next to each other. Therefore, we get started again within our build method, and here we create a new method, build burgers. And inside of this method, we create first of all a row widget. And secondly, I paste here this build burger method inside, which we have created in the last tutorial. And now we can simply make use of this burger and simply put it here inside of our row widget. And with this, we have here our burger here inside. And you see it looks pretty cool. And now we want to display another widget next to this. And therefore we can simply duplicate our burger, and now you see that we have here 2 burgers next to each other. The only problem here is that our burger is bigger than the whole width which we have available, and therefore you also can wrap here around your burgers an expanded widget, and this will then expand this widget to the maximum space it can get. And like you can see, this widget gets here all the space, and this widget gets only the space it can get because there is no more space for it. And to equally give every widget here the same space, we simply wrap here also around this other one, this expanded widget, and now both of the widgets get here the same space which is available. And if you like, you can also add here some space between this burger and this burger, and therefore you have here the size box, and then you set here the width, and I set it to 12 pixels, and with this we have now 12 pixels between both of these widgets in our row widget. And lastly, we want to create our third design, and therefore we want to create here this box, and like you can see here at the beginning we have an image, then we have a text, and then we also have here another container. And here you also see that we have all of these widgets horizontally next to each other, and therefore we can make use here of a row widget. Therefore, let's get started in our build method, and here we create a new method, build subject, and inside of this method we create then our row widget. And now in our row widget we create first of all this image, then this text, and then also this box at the end. Therefore, let's get started with this image, and therefore I create here an image widget, and I also put here an URL to an image inside, and this is pointing to an image in the internet. And now you see that we display here an image in our row, however it takes here the whole width and height it can get, and therefore we also want to set here the width and height for this image to 80 by 80. And lastly, you also need to set here this box fit cover so that it really takes 80 by 80 pixels. Next, we also want to set the background color of our widget, and therefore we simply go to our row, and here around we want to wrap another container widget, and inside of this container widget you can then set a background color, and I set it right now to black. And this will make sure that the whole space to the right gets here this background color black. And secondly, we also want to add here some padding and also add here 8 pixels in space to the left, to the top, to the bottom, and to the right side. In our design, you also see that this image which we put here inside is rounded, and therefore we also want to make this image rounded. Therefore, you simply go to your image widget, and here around you wrap then another widget which is called clip rect, and then you put here inside the border radius property inside, and then I set it here for example to 20, and this will make then our widget rounded, and it clips simply the whole image at the corners away. And if you want to make it more rounded, then put here a higher value inside, and then it is even more rounded. Next to our image widget, we want to display then the text widget and also this box here at the end. And therefore we simply go here to our row, and here we have already placed our first widget inside, and next to it we want to create then our second widget, and this is then this text chemistry. And we also want to give it some text style, so we want to make it here white and also make it bold. And with this we have here this chemistry next to our image. And like you notice in our design, we have here a bit space between our image and our text, and therefore we also want to add this space. And therefore you simply go here to your text widget and also to your image widget, and here in between we want to add then some space. And therefore I add here the size box, and I put here a width of 8 pixels inside, and this will then put here 8 pixels in space between our image and our text. And lastly, we want to create another text at the end, and this is then displayed later here within our box. However, like you can see, it is directly placed next to our widget. And what we want to do is to place the two at the end of our row. And how you can do this is by simply wrapping here this chemistry widget inside of an expanded widget. And with this expanded widget, you tell this widget that it should get the maximum space it can get. And the text widget too is then displayed at the end. And lastly, we want to set here around our to this box, what you also can see here in our design. To achieve this, we simply go to our text widget, and here around we create then a container widget. And with this container widget, you can then set a background color. And now you see that our text has here this white background color. And secondly, you can set the size of this container. Therefore, I add here this width and height to 80 pixels. And now you see that we have here 80 by 80 pixels, and our child widget is displayed here at the top left corner. Like you see in our design, the text is then centered, and also we have here this container rounded. To achieve this, we simply go to our text widget, and here around we want to wrap then another widget which is called center, and this will then center our text widget here within our container. And now we also want to make here our container rounded, and therefore we simply go here to our container, and around it we want to wrap then a clip rect widget, and inside of the clip rect widget you can then set a border radius, and I set it here to 20, and this will then clip here our container and make it rounded. And like before, if you put here a higher value inside, then it is even more rounded. And the same roundedness we also can apply here to our outer black container, and therefore I simply go here all the way up, and here I go to this container which has the color black, which is here this background color, and here around we want to wrap then also a clip rect widget, and like before we can then set the border radius, and I set it here to 20. And with this we see that it is here also rounded. And by the way, if you want to get here this whole source code of this application, then you can get it with the first link in the description, and with the second link you can get access to my Flutter courses, where I teach you how you can become a better and more efficient developer. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel here to get the latest news about Flutter, and see you soon. Bye!